As I continue on in my journey to improve in whitewater kayaking, I've come to one massive realization. And that is that whitewater kayaking involves an exceptionally tough mental game. Fear, the continuity of the river, and the need for clarity create a particular set of mental challenges that, when combined, differentiate whitewater kayaking from all other sports, games, and activities. The element of fear instantly sets whitewater kayaking apart from many other recreational activities. A tennis player does not experience fear during a match, nor does a chess player. Sure, there is still some fear, maybe a scolding by the coach or being cut from the team, but that emotion of fear is due to other outside influences rather than tied to the game itself.
Well, I'm up here. There's only one way to get down.
Compare that to whitewater kayaking. Here, the fears are rooted in primal self-preservation. There's the fear of speed, heights, and then of course, the fear of drowning.
Hey, calm down. You good? You okay?
The consequences are real. People die in the sport.
2 days before the race, as our cameramen Don Lee and Chris Albert were setting up to record more practice runs, they spotted an empty kayak at the bottom of the falls.
On American Whitewater, you can find accident reports that detail whitewater-related injuries and fatalities, and they are terrifying. One such account on the Green River in North Carolina is as follows. We all worked fast to set up ropes, and I jumped out to center rock and was able to get hands on him. I grabbed him and pulled with everything I had. I knew something was wrong. I dove under and felt his left leg was still in the boat, and I tried to free it but could not. I grabbed him by his right hand and neck, shook and pulled with all I had, still no luck. I knew at that point the only way was to unpin the boat or pull him out upstream with a rope. Wade Harrison on the death of Matthew Ray at Go Left Rapid 2018. Paddle long enough and you'll surely hear stories about dead friends and close calls. Keep on paddling and you'll eventually end up running a rapid that has killed someone, which is an eerie and unsettling feeling. That feeling only adds to the fear that is already swirling around in our minds. Doing the research and scouting the rapids may or may not help. The descriptions of whitewater rapids in the guidebooks make them out to be glamorous, yet still frightening. Whether you're paddling the whole river or hiking in and out for the meat of the whitewater, expect to pay your dues. Blood, sweat, and tears are all small penance for the absolute finest in wilderness Class 5 paddling. Kirk Edelman on the Linville Gorge and Whitewater of the Southern Appalachians, Volume 2, 2014. But any whitewater kayaker will tell you that reading a description or even seeing a video is absolutely nothing like seeing that rapid in real life. Even the highest definition camera fails to truly capture what a rapid is like, and the moving images from a YouTuber's GoPro video pale in comparison to personally standing on a rock looking into the monstrous, unforgiving water below. So, how do you get rid of this fear? Well, the simple answer is that you don't. Boyd Ruppelt accurately discloses this uncomfortable truth when he says,
I don't think that we really get over the fear. Fear's something I deal with all the time. Everybody I know deals with it regularly. We just get better at handling it and making decisions with the fear.
Boyd Ruppelt, Dealing with Fear, 2021. Fear is integral to the sport of whitewater kayaking. Your mental state in the presence of all this fear is what differentiates whitewater kayaking from many other sports and games. Now hold on a second, Jer, you might say. Many other sports have fear in them too. What about combat sports, like mixed martial arts? The fighters there deal with fear every time they step into the ring. In American football, players have to lay out to catch a pass, knowing that they are about to be hit, and those statements are 100% correct.
Separation. Oh, big hit. Sanders gets walloped by McLeod.
But there's a further element that separates whitewater kayaking from those other sports, and that is continuity. There are rules in the National Football League. There's a referee to end fights in mixed martial arts. Timeouts can be called to stop the action and give some much needed respite. The river, however, does not care. There is no governing official. There's no rule book. There are no timeouts. Mother Nature hits you with her unrelenting power, and she never lets up, regardless of whether you are tired, hurt, or dying. The forces of water are not to be trifled with. What seems like just a little bit of water has washed away boats, gear, and people. According to the Flood Hazard Research Center, a flow of approximately 7.2 miles per hour can start to wash people off their feet in a depth of only 9 to 10 inches. In water approximately 3 feet deep, flows of 2.2 miles per hour become challenging, and by approximately 4 miles per hour, everybody will be washed off their feet. Rescue 3 International, Water and Flood Rescue Manual, version 6.1, 2018. These numbers seem small, and they are. Yet anyone who has swam or waded in whitewater can attest to just how difficult and constant it can be. It is impossible to just stop a river. If the paddler provides no input, the boat will continue to float down, ricocheting off rocks at the mercy of the flow.
You got it. Paddle, paddle, paddle. You're good.
An experienced paddler can use the flow to make moves and maneuver themselves in their craft, but there still is no stopping that water. It's not uncommon to see all sorts of boats, ranging from kayaks to rafts, get pushed into rocks and into each other. When shown a video of a raft colliding into a kayaker, Dylan Harrison Pennick, the owner of River Company Outfitters, merely remarked, "There's no brakes on that thing." Dylan Harrison Pennick, collision at Guide Rock 2021. And that's the truth. Nothing can stop the push of the river, and dealing with that constant force is no easy task. Even when the paddler is done and just wants to give up, the river continues.
Let's get you right.
There is no place that this becomes more apparent than when watching a beginner swim. From my own personal observations of anybody that has just started paddling, most beginners treat pulling their skirt just like tapping out in a wrestling match. To them, the fight ends as soon as the skirt tab is pulled and the swimmer resurfaces. Except, the fight isn't over. Swimming is only the start of what can be a long battle to get to safety. Kevin Hart did a comedic piece on whitewater rafting where he imitated the safety brief at a whitewater rafting company.
You fall out your raft, people, you must be a part of your own rescue. Meaning you must help us help you. You got a lifeline. Lifeline looks like this. Lifeline's 7 feet long. If you fall out the raft, we can throw it to you. If you're at 8 feet, I suggest you get to 7. That's the only way we can get you back in.
Kevin Hart, I'm a Grown Little Man, 2011. And while this is a part of his stand-up routine, Kevin Hart is completely correct. Swimming in whitewater can go on for a very, very long time and is excruciatingly difficult without self-rescue. The best paddlers tend to also be very good whitewater swimmers, as failing in swimming is just a part of the process. The continuity of whitewater serves as another difficult mental hurdle to overcome, requiring the kayaker to stay constantly focused and ready. The never-ending onslaught of water brought to bear by the river demand a state of mind that is rarely seen in any other sport or game. With all this fear and danger around us, it would be understandable to think that kayakers run off adrenaline. After all, the excitement and near-death experiences must have some sort of effect on the brain. No normal individual would ever look at a waterfall and think to themselves, it would be a great idea to kayak over it. But I think that is where most people are mistaken. While adrenaline does make you faster, stronger, quicker, it also causes a faster heart rate, tenser muscles, and extreme fatigue. The biggest concern, however, is the mental effect. Adrenaline clouds the brain and cuts out the most important mental aspect of kayaking, and that is mental clarity. Clarity is needed to keep the natural human instincts at bay. Trevor Thompson, a base jumper and former Navy SEAL, comments on adrenaline.
You're going to be swinging the baseball bat around. You are so far down the train of you jacked this up, where it's like, if you're at the point where you're freaking out, something's gone terribly wrong.
Trevor Thompson, The Joe Rogan Experience number 1434, 2019. This concept of adrenaline affecting mental clarity is present in whitewater kayaking as well. Everything in whitewater kayaking is counterintuitive. Even the most basic of whitewater skills, the kayak roll, requires a kayaker to keep his or her head down towards the water. In a perfect textbook roll, the head and face should be the last portion of the body to resurface. This is very, very hard to do when the human survival instinct is to lift that head up to the surface to breathe. Along those lines, the right move to make when coming upon a rock is to lean into the impact.
You okay? You okay?
The right move to make when going over a drop is to lean forward into the drop. Doing the opposite, that is, leaning away from the rock and leaning back during a drop, can have catastrophic consequences. And yet, the human instinct is to do those incorrect actions. In other words, the most fundamental, primordial impulse for self-preservation can and will betray you on the river. This is why clarity and confidence are so critical in whitewater kayaking. The fight, flight, or freeze response cannot be allowed to activate. The fight response tends to manifest itself as panicky, twitchy, and tense paddle strokes. They are ineffective at best and exacerbate the situation at worst. This is akin to mashing all the controller buttons in a video game and hoping for the best. The flight and the freeze response show up as defensive paddling or a complete lack of paddling. The kayaker at this point is now reactive rather than proactive. Seth Ashworth explains this by saying,
if you're always defending, the river's going to keep coming at you because the river doesn't stop, right? Like rapids don't stop. You can't just like stop and sit down. Like the river keeps going. So if you're always on the defense and you're like waiting to do a bracing stroke, you've already lost.
Seth Ashworth, never flip your kayak again, one simple tip, 2020. Bren Orton illustrates the dangers of not paddling when he says,
So paddle is basically the steering wheel of a car, and so anytime you don't have your blade engaged in the water, that's like having your hands off the steering wheel.
Bren Orton, 5 most common kayaking mistakes, 2019. Both these individuals make it clear that defensive paddling is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, my hand got caught up on something.
Whitewater kayaking instead requires an aggressive, confident mindset that is counter to the human survival instinct. Clarity of mind must be maintained over primal tendencies in order to succeed in whitewater kayaking, something that is exclusive to very, very few sports. Whitewater kayaking is not an easy sport, even for the mentally tough among us. The combination of the 3 factors of keeping the mind clear of survival instincts, the constant and relentless flow of the river, and the ever-gnawing fear make whitewater kayaking a sport that is uniquely demanding on the psyche. This challenge requires a paddler to really trust in themselves and shines an inward light on who they really are. I believe Pete Beck said it best.
But we had a crew whose minds were racing in circles, thinking about all the things that can go wrong, wondering if they were ready, wondering how the day would turn out. Somehow, though, you have to put all those thoughts aside and get into the moment and just paddle.
If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I originally meant this as a project for a psychology class that I was taking in school, but it got a little out of hand. Regardless, be sure to check out the links in the description. Those are all the channels and things that I pulled media from in order to help make this video. Definitely be sure to also check out River Company Outfitters. They make awesome apparel and hats. And then of course check out the River Kings as well. Although if you're here, more than likely you originally came from them. I highly recommend looking at Sine School's Dealing with Fear. I think that's a must-watch video for any kayaker, regardless of skill level, as much of that applies to all of us and what we do. I am still looking to make a Patreon, hopefully before the end of the year. That way all of you that want to support me can do so. It's just real life gets in the way sometimes. And so with that said, thank you all for continuing on this journey with me and for paddling with me. I hope to meet every one of you on the river one of these days. Hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you all next time.